Auto subs and swaps. Automatic substitutions and Libero swaps are powerful features of the iStat VBall lineup system. They can save you a lot of time and taps while recording stats, but they are totally optional. Feel free to use them or not as you please. To use the feature, begin by defining your starting lineup in the normal way, as we see here. Take note of the rotation numbers 1 through 6 running counterclockwise around the court. These show who is serving in each rotation. These rotation numbers are a useful guideline when defining your subs and swaps. Now we'll set up some automatic substitution patterns. These are useful if you have the same recurring patterns in the lineup. It saves you a lot of time rather than having to manually do the swap each time that player comes around on the court in your lineup. It's particularly powerful if you run a 6-2 and are doing double substitutions, often in rotations 1 and 4, for your setters and opposites. The auto subs really save a lot of time in that scenario, and we'll show you a demonstration of how to set that up here. Note that the auto subs use the same rotation numbering as the starting lineup. The rotation defines when the sub occurs, not the area of the court. This is the most common point of confusion and is really important to understand. First, choose this player that is subbing out. In this case, we'll say that our starting setter, who you'll notice is Natalie Nectar, when our starting setter gets to, when we're in rotation 4, our starting setter, Natalie Nectar, is going to sub out. The area of the court where the substitution occurs is determined by the location of the player coming out. If the player coming out is not on the court, the sub will be ignored. Now, the area of the court and the rotation are only the same if you're in rotation 1. So again, that's important to understand the distinction between the rotation and area of court. Next, choose the player subbing in. In this case, we're going to sub in our opposite, Linda Lefty. You can also choose the position of the player coming in case that happens to be different than what's automatically chosen. Again, this is very helpful when running a 6-2 in order to keep the auto set working correctly. If the player coming in is already on the court for some reason, the sub will be ignored. Note that you can enter 2 substitutions per rotation. Again, very useful for a 6-2 with double subs. So in this case, in rotation 4, we're also subbing out our other opposite, and now our second setter comes in, Heather Hands. And in rotation 1, we do the opposite subs. Our other opposite, Linda Lefty, comes out, and our starting setter, Natalie Nectar, comes back in. Again, if you need to change the position for any reason, just tap the position button and choose the appropriate position. The other sub in this rotation is the other setter, Heather Hands, being replaced by the other opposite, Ivana Oppo, ONC. It defaulted to outside hitter here. We can change that to opposite. All right, let's go ahead and save that so we don't lose those changes. Now we'll come back in and show you some substitutions. Actually, let's make one other note while we're here. The confirm button allows you to determine whether you want to be prompted for confirmation before this sub automatically happens. We recommend having this on when you start out, but if you find that it's working exactly as you intended, then you can turn it off if you prefer. Also keep in mind that there's only basic validation on the substitutions. The auto sub system will not prevent you from making illegal subs, so keep an eye out for that. Now we'll go ahead and do some automated Libero swaps. They're set up very similarly to the auto subs. Again, auto swaps use the same rotation numbering as the starting lineup and subs. Remember that the rotation defines when the swap occurs, not the area of court. When doing a swap, you first choose the player swapping out. For this example, we're going to do the common scenario of swapping out your middles both of your middles for your libero. So in this case, if we look at our starting lineup, our middles serve in rotations 3 and 6. So that's when we want our swaps to occur. So in rotation 3, we're swapping out one of our middles, the middle that serves in rotation 3, Alexis Quick, and we're going to swap in the libero. Now the libero has to be defined as one of the liberos in the starting lineup in order to show up in the list here. Again, we can choose whether or not we want to have a confirmation prompt when the swap occurs or whether we want it to happen just silently. We recommend starting with confirm turned on, and then you can turn it off if you prefer once everything is running smoothly. We'll leave it on for now. Now the start button determines whether the swap occurs at the start of the service possession or at the end of the possession. So for example, in this case, if the libero swaps in for our middle and we want the libero to serve, then we make the swap at the start of the possession. If we want the middle to serve and then the libero swaps in after the end of that possession, we just turn off the start option. Now let's also do a swap in rotation 6 when our other middle serves, who is Rita Roofs. Swaps in for the libero. And in this case, let's say we're not going to have the libero serve, we'll let the middle serve. So we'll turn off start. Note that the auto swap at the very beginning of the set will only happen if you're starting in the same rotation as you have configured for one of the swaps. So in this case, your libero will only automatically swap in if you're starting in rotations 3 or 6. If you start in rotation 1, which is common, that first auto swap won't automatically happen, and you'll still need to do that one manually. Now the auto swap system supports most all of the typical auto swap patterns or swap patterns, but if you have a very esoteric libero swap situation, it may not handle that and you may still need to do it manually. But the vast majority of cases should be handled automatically. If you need any help configuring your auto subs or swaps, please contact us at support@istatvball.com and we'd be happy to help. We hope you enjoy the feature.